First, we'll start off with a moment of meditation. You'll never fully understand scales, modes, chords, and even basic theory without first learning to instantaneously recognize each note on the fretboard. If you want to learn to read music notation, the first step is to learn to instantly identify note names. I'm going to teach you 4 patterns and a few exercises that will get the job done. These simple patterns will unlock every single note on the fretboard, and you should be able to master this within a couple of weeks. To fully understand what I'm explaining, you must print the study materials, and you should print this material right now so you'll be able to study it as I explain it in the video here. After you've printed the diagrams, let's see how well you know the fretboard. Try this test and you'll find that it's illustrated in exercise 1 from the printed program materials. There are at least 2 of each note names on each string. For instance, F, 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 F. Set a metronome or drum machine to 60 beats per minute. You should be able to identify all notes without hesitation at this tempo. Start with the A note and identify 2 A notes on each of the 6 strings. After you've identified all 12 A notes, move through the alphabet to B, then C, D, E, F, and finally G. You only get one chance to do this. You either pass or fail. To see how your results compare to others, click on the link Note Name Survey. You may wonder, how is it possible that 96% of all guitarists are able to get by without memorizing the note names? Well, here's how. At some point, most guitarists memorize note positions but don't continue to work on this over time. Without constant attention, we lose the ability to recall these notes. Most guitarists play by ear, read tab, practice scale patterns, lead patterns, and they don't actually think of the note names while they're playing these patterns. It's possible to play at a professional level, actually, and not be able to instantly identify each note. Still, there's no excuse for not mastering this. You can accomplish this in about 2 weeks, then continue to keep on top of it by reviewing these exercises occasionally. I'm not going to explain note name basics here because this lesson is aimed at guitarists that understand the basics but haven't managed to memorize note positions. So I'm assuming that you know the basics. If not, please check out my video called Guitar Note Names for Beginners. Exercise 2 in the printed material shows the open strings. E, A, D, G, B, E. As you should know, the guitar starts over at the 12th fret, so you have the same notes in the same order as the open strings at the 12th fret. Once again, E, A, D, G, B, E. The 12th fret is an octave higher. We'll primarily concentrate on note names for the first 12 frets since the layout is identical 12 frets higher. Wouldn't it be great if all notes were in the same order as the open strings? That would certainly make this easy, wouldn't it? Well, that's the fundamental idea of what I'm teaching, beginning with exercise 4. These 4 simple patterns that you're getting ready to learn contain notes in the exact same order as the open strings. And this is very important that you understand this. It's turning these 4 patterns into the open strings. You must learn to visualize these 4 patterns exactly like you visualize chord patterns. As I mentioned, each of these 4 patterns has the same notes in the same order as the open strings. Keep in mind that these patterns work in a circular fashion just like note names do. With note names you have A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. Then it starts over again with A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. Exercise 3 shows how to use the names of the open strings in this same circular fashion. The note order is E, A, D, G, B, and back to E, just like the open strings. Then it starts over with A, D, G, B, E, and back to A. Exercise 4 is the first pattern with the same notes in the same order as the open strings. Instead of starting on E, it begins on G. But keep in mind, these are in the exact same order as notes from the open strings. So, G, B, E, A, D, G. Just like the open strings, except it starts on G. Now the next pattern starts on A, and it's A, and just like the open strings, followed by D, G, B, E, back to A. The next pattern starts with B. B, E, A, D, G, back to B. Once again, same notes in the same order as the open strings. The next pattern starts on D. D, G, B, E, A, D. And once again, just like the open strings. So if you know the names of the open strings and learn to visualize these patterns, you know practically every note on the fretboard. At first, when you move through the patterns, you may visualize the open string names to remember these notes. For example, as I look at exercise 4, the first pattern, I'm visualizing this third string open G as I'm playing the G. And then the next note open string would be B. So I'm playing the B, but I'm visualizing the open string. And then the next open string would be E. And so in this first pattern, it's E. Then A, D, G. The same order as the open strings. Okay, with one small adjustment to these patterns, you'll know every natural note on the fretboard. These patterns are missing the half tones. Remember, all notes are a whole tone interval apart, except B to C is a half tone, and E to F is a half tone. These patterns are missing the C and F. So the next thing that you've got to identify is where all the C's and F's are, as shown in exercise 8. And it's just as easy as you know where B and E is, so C and F are right next to the B and E. And this holds true in all of the patterns. Don't begin working with exercise 8 until you have memorized the 4 patterns without the halftone intervals. And that will take you a few days, probably a week at least. Exercise 9 shows that these patterns together contain every natural note on the fretboard. Sharps and flats can be identified the same way as B and C. Since you know where G is, for example, a half step flat, of course, is G flat. So when you learn the natural note names, and that's just without sharps and flats, you know where all the sharps and flats are because they're located right next to the natural tones. Run through the 4 patterns for 5 minutes a day at the beginning of your practice session. Set a minute timer for 5 minutes and don't become distracted. No Facebook, phone, or email. You must concentrate on this every day for 2 weeks. First, run through the patterns in order. Then spend time naming the notes at random in the patterns. Then add the C and F notes. Start hopping up and down the fretboard at random and call the note names out loud, okay? Visualizing these patterns is a great first step, but try to concentrate on the name of each individual note. Speak the note name out loud as you identify it and really concentrate on the name and position. For instance, G, which is in the pattern that begins with B, try to take it outside of that pattern and really just think of G. Identify the note itself, visualize the note and the position of the note, and start thinking of each one of these notes as a separate note outside of the patterns. Use the patterns as a crutch to get you started, but try to stay away from them once you actually start to identify the note positions. There are some note names that will be more difficult than others to memorize. Spend extra time concentrating on these notes. Okay, in your practice session, next, set your timer for another 5 minutes, so it's 10 minutes altogether. Look at the distinctive pattern of octaves demonstrated in exercises 10 and 11. And notice that it's just a pattern. Octave, octave, octave. So those are the G's. Move that same pattern up to A and you have the A octaves. C. Now do the same thing on the fifth string. C, D, G. It's really only a single pattern, and that pattern never changes. While you're doing this, really concentrate on the note name and position of each of these octaves. Since the rest of the fretboard is just a repeat of the first 12 frets, you now actually know the whole fretboard. Exercise 12 shows that the first pattern, which is in exercise 4 at the G note, is identical to the same pattern an octave higher. You can work with all 4 patterns an octave higher to master the entire fretboard. Here are some other exercises to occasionally work into your practice routine. A variety of these exercises will reinforce what you've already learned and keep this stuff from becoming boring and routine. By turning this into a game, you can almost make it fun. Exercise 13 demonstrates unisons on adjacent strings. Exercise 14 demonstrates octaves on adjacent strings. Try moving up and down the fretboard a fret at a time and identify notes on all 6 strings at each fret like this. Do this in order and at random. When you can do this at 60 beats per minute, you have officially mastered these note names. As you play licks, scales, and modes, identify the note names. As you're playing an A natural minor scale, for example, analyze the notes that differ from A major. Really think about the note names involved. After working on these exercises, it's time to measure your improvement. Do the same test as found in exercise 1 by finding 2 of each note on each string at 60 beats per minute. Do this for all 7 notes and practice this daily with and without a metronome. And do this for the next few weeks and you'll have these note names mastered. After that, you'll want to occasionally practice these exercises to keep this stuff clear in your mind. Use it or lose it. Every exercise taught in this program can be visualized without a guitar in your hands. Use time that would otherwise be wasted to mentally work on these exercises. We all have time spent waiting in line at the post office or waiting for a car repair or doctor's appointment or even lunch and dinner breaks. Use this time to mentally run through these exercises. It will make the time fly and you'll actually accomplish something in time that would otherwise be wasted. I can always be found on the Metal Method forum. Please stop by and let me know how you're doing with this. I'm going to create a poll for this subject on the forum, and that way you can see how you're doing compared to others. 3 weeks from today, sign on to the poll and tell us if this has helped you. Even though 96% of all guitarists don't know fretboard note names, I'm confident that you'll soon be in the top 4% of your class. And let me be the first to congratulate you.